Welcome to the Private Practice with Soul podcast. My name is Dr. Brooklyn Storm and I help private practice owners align their business back with their soul's calling, with their big vision and with their soul's purpose. Unlike other private practice coaches, I've traveled the world in search of spiritual resources, spiritual tools, education and information so that you can have the transformation that your soul desires and needs so that you can up-level your business. How much fun is this? I love it so much. Guys, if you're not already a member of the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group, please check out the show notes. I would love for you to be there. In the meantime, thank you so much for pushing play today. Let's begin. Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast. My name is Dr. Brooklyn Storm and I am so pleased that you're here. I want to take a moment and thank everybody for subscribing and also welcome to the podcast for all our new subscribers this week. I'm so pleased that you guys are here as well. If you haven't had a chance yet, go back and binge on some of the previous episodes. Some of them have been super duper popular, so I'll be looking on building on some of those over coming weeks for you. So that's going to be so much fun. And how cool is it that we all get to come together as women in private practice who are traditionally in mainstream type roles like psychology, social work and counseling, but we all get to come together and have conversations about this other kind of non-mainstream, a little bit woo-woo stuff, and share each other's experiences, build each other up, lift each other up in this safe space and learn how to use new approaches, techniques, tools and strategies so that you can implement them into how you run your practice. I love doing this sort of stuff and it's so nice speaking with other business women as well. So guys, today what we're going to do is I had a question from somebody, which is so exciting. Not many people email in, I'll be honest, but when I do receive emails, oh my gosh, I just jump on them because I love them so much. But somebody sent me an email and she said to me, why do I always feel like I need to focus on what needs to be done and not fluff around with contemplating my purpose? So I'm giving you the short version there, but basically she's been thinking a lot lately about finding her purpose, but like she was explaining in her email, her family aren't on board with that. And I think she's wasting her time and she should just focus on bringing in the money and, having a 9-to-5 job and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, okay, let's turn this into a podcast. So the title of the podcast today is You Must Focus on What Needs to Be Done and Not Fluff Around with Contemplating Your Purpose. I kind of want to ask you true or false. And I think you guys are probably going to say false because you're like me and we all kind of think the same stuff, But how does it even get to this point, guys, where we're even wondering, if it's a waste of time, if it's too indulgent for us to sit down and contemplate our purpose? It's kind of, when you're starting to wake up to the whole idea of spirituality and, you test the water a little bit with a few tools and techniques and you have some success and then you become a little bit more open and a little bit more open. Of course, you start to really think to yourself, maybe I do need to start thinking about my purpose. And I think, that's really part of most people's journey as they're on that evolution of not only their business. I think the business sort of comes second, but it's an evolution of the woman first, isn't it? Like you as a woman first have to have that inner knowing, that inner understanding of why you're here when you're walking this path, right? Suddenly it becomes more than your 9-to-5 job. And I think we should absolutely honor that. But where does the idea come from that we shouldn't be doing that and that it is just fluffing around? Well, I've got a theory and maybe some of you will agree with me. And if you don't, let me know because I love discussion. And of course, I love a little bit of debate as well. And I love learning, like discussion is how we all learn, I think. So my idea around this is I think a lot of the time we just kind of have been conditioned to get stuck in the doing. And somewhere along the line in life, we're kind of taught, not perhaps overtly, but it's just something we pick up. It's reinforced for us that we get some kind of reward for the doing. And maybe that's a reward from parents. Maybe it's a reward from society. Maybe it's a reward from partners or employers or things like that. But there's this sense that the priority needs to be on what you're doing. And I can absolutely relate to this, because before I, was evolving myself spiritually, I didn't always think that my purpose was to be a psychologist. No. I grew up having this very deep interest in spiritual things, and like some other of you guys, I didn't really talk about it much because it wasn't cool to talk about it and people would think you're a bit weird. And I didn't even really talk much about tarot cards and stuff because I was worried people might think I'm a gypsy, and I had it in my mind that being a gypsy was a bad thing, but that's a whole other story. And I didn't talk much about my crystals and things like that either. But what happened was, when I was old enough to start working, I started working and I was suddenly seen and heard. I suddenly got acknowledgement from family. I suddenly got acknowledgement from my community. I suddenly got, some kind of acknowledgement in terms of money for the doing. And so I learned very early on that if I wanted to be seen, heard, acknowledged, approved of, appreciated, loved, things like that, that I needed to be doing stuff, not being something. And so, of course, I know now that's all different. I'm just talking about what it was like for me. And what ended up happening was, I got my qualifications and everything, got the PhD, yada, yada, yada. I started working, as you know, I had private practice. And as part of my private practice, I got this really big contract with a very big insurance company in Australia. And I became, my business became the national manager for their team of allied health professionals, right? And so it was all like really exciting and really a big deal. And everybody was very proud of me and very happy for me. It meant that I was killing myself doing more work. I live over an hour away from the city. It's probably about an hour and 3/4 in peak hour traffic. I was doing that drive twice a day, 6 days a week, and seeing a lot of clients myself, plus overseeing a national team of doctors, physios, chiros, psychologists, all of this sort of stuff. And we were, we had these really high targets to meet of how many people we were providing services for and all of this sort of stuff. So it was high pressure. And, I kind of loved it because I was getting all that positive feedback all the time about what I was doing. And then what happened was, one day there was an assault. So I was at work just minding my own business, and somebody had, with mental health, sometimes some people can be a little bit unpredictable, and somebody was engaging in unpredictable behavior, and I was very much at risk. And anyway, after the police and the ambulance and everybody left, I was quite shaken, and I was physically shaking. I was like trembling and everything, and I was starting to cry. And I remember the two executive managers of my contract called me into their office. And so I went in, and I thought that they were going to give me a hug and tell me everything was going to be all right. But what ended up happening, I'm so naive. I swear I live in this pink bubble where everybody is like, it's all puppy dogs and rainbows. But anyway, so I thought that I was going to get comforted and reassured that I was going to be okay. But I got strips torn off me for crying because, the feelings, there's no place for feelings in the workplace. And, anyway, that really affected me so much that I began switching off, and I just became quite robotic. And I just, next day, I didn't even take time off because I was so afraid of being seen as weak. I was told, girls don't cry, and especially national managers, and you just can't do that. And so I believed them, and I took that on board, because you know what it's like when you're upset and you're vulnerable and you're emotional, you don't think clearly, so you just kind of take everything on. I took it on, went to work the next day and the day after and the day after that, and never miss a day of work. And the whole time, what I had learned, because it had such an emotional charge, it went straight down into my subconscious mind, and it became a core belief that there's no place for feelings in the workplace. You can't do that if you want to be taken seriously as a woman at work. So yeah, without even realizing, it became this core belief, and that affected me for a very long time. And it's only since I started doing some of this other spiritual work over the last few years that I've realized how that came about for me, and that it's okay to release it and let it go. And of course, it's absolutely a place for you as a woman to honor your emotion, to tap into that and to use it. It's your God-given strength that you have. You know, that's like one of your superpowers, the ability to be emotive and emotional, to be able to access that part of your heart and your soul, because there's so much rich information in there that you absolutely must honor it. I think when a feeling starts to come up for you, or even when an emotion starts to come up for you, that's a sign. And all of that information is going to be so helpful for you in your life. It opens up this window that you might not have access to if you're just stuck in your head. And so I think now, as we're learning more and more about balancing things like masculine and feminine energy, what we're also acknowledging is that, yes, this is your superpower. It's one of many superpowers that you have, not only as a woman, but as part of that feminine energy. So even men who, because we all have those four energies, feminine, masculine, wounded, feminine, wounded, masculine. So even men who are operating in their feminine or wounded feminine, can start honoring the role that emotion plays for them. And I think in the past, maybe because of just how things, it's such a cliche kind of, but I know it's true and it really happened, but it was all very patriarchal in the workplace, and that just kind of continued on, didn't it? And I think because women came to the workplace after men, it was really in the 80s and 90s, wasn't it? I mean, that's so recent to me that women really started to gain momentum, okay, in terms of the workforce. I mean, they started working in the workforce when all the men went off to war, and then when the men came back to war, the women were told to go back home. And from that time then, women always knew that they wanted to go and contribute, but when they did, it had to be in a very certain way. They had to almost imitate men, or almost adapt and become like that masculine energy in order to fit in. It's very Darwinian, isn't it? I mean, just look at, Mum and I were watching a movie last night on Netflix, Working Girls. It was like a movie, I can't remember if it was made in like the 80s or the 90s, but the shoulder pads, oh my goodness. And I was just thinking, there again, we've got that symbolism of stepping into that real masculine energy there, and not honoring the feminine. Those women needed to do that to fit in, and like once you're in, you can start to dismantle, and that's what's happened. And aren't we lucky now as women that we can have a little bit more freedom in the workplace, but that we can also start our own online businesses, we can also start our own private practices, and we get to choose how we want to show up in those. So the emphasis used to be on doing, and then when you do the work, you have the recognition, and then you can be respected, right? For example. But now we've got an opportunity, especially as women in our feminine energy and men in their feminine energy, to really start switching that around and become, operating from that be. Who am I being? Who do I want to be? And what does that entail me doing so that then I can have the thing, right? So I think it's a really important time for us in our private practices to start reflecting on the role of emotion and feeling as business owners. And I want to ask you, do you feel that there's a place? Do you feel that there's a role for feeling and emotion in how you run your business? And if not, why not? And if so, what would that role look like? how could you begin to honor emotion? How could you begin to honor feeling in the workplace when it's your business, you're the director of it, you're the owner of it, right? What are you modeling for your team if you have a team? If you don't have a team, what are you modeling for clients? You know, how are you showing up, even if you're a solo practitioner, maybe in terms of that therapeutic relationship? How are you honoring an expression of emotion there, perhaps? How are you honoring expression of feeling? How are you helping other people identify what they're feeling and not just leave it there, but use that energy, use that emotion, use that feeling to inform an action step, or to inform a new perspective or a new choice or a new perspective, right? Because I don't know what you guys think, but I absolutely think that there's a role for emotion. For me, I run a solo private practice. I've got two businesses, okay? So one is I'm a coach to you guys, and you know that involves running this podcast and everything, which I love. The other business is I do coaching and counselling for women in the broader community who are facing some big decisions, some big change that's been thrust upon them. Maybe they've just been made redundant. Maybe their partner has suddenly left. Maybe somebody's moved on from their life, something like that. And they're kind of at a crossroads and they're not sure where to go. So, you know, what I want to do in the work that I have in both of those businesses is use emotion as an indicator of, you know, this is something that we could explore further, because perhaps it's triggering something in you. It's identifying, it's a signal that there's more here that we can dive deeper into. And maybe by that deep dive, we're going to be able to uncover some kind of hidden treasure that's going to have the key to whatever it is you need to be able to take that next step in your private practice or in your life or in your workplace or whatever it is, you know, you guys or those clients might be dealing with. So I see emotion as road marks. I think that emotion and feeling are very closely tied to your intuition, are very closely tied to that inner guidance. I think when things are out of alignment with your inner guidance, that's when, you know, an uncomfortable emotion comes up, like anger or resentment or sadness. It's kind of that low vibe stuff. But I think when you have a more pleasing emotion like joy and celebration and happiness and, oh, you know, like, oh my gosh, like last night, Gabe, you know, for those of you who are new, like Gabe is my dog. He's a Maltese cross. He's about 10 years old now. He's getting, you know, he's not well. And last night he was like really crook. And I was up and down all night. Every time I just get back to sleep, he'd want to go out and eat more grass. And then he'd come in and his belly was really squeaky and, oh, you know. But do you know what? I bought he's got an obsession with this selenite lamp. So I've got a selenite lamp in my lounge room. And it's probably about 1/2 meter tall. And every day, without fail, Gabe will go and sit next to that selenite lamp, and that's his little tell for me to turn the lamp on. And then when I turn the lamp on, he curls around the lamp. Other times he just wants to like meditate and stare into the lamp. He won't look at me. He won't look at the TV. He won't look out the window. He just it's fixated with this lamp. So I went and got the lamp from the lounge room, brought it into the bedroom, turned it on so he would feel comforted by that, and put it on the bedside table. He was up on my bed and he was just so unwell, and he was just looking at me with these great big brown puppy dog eyes, and I was just so in love with him in that moment. And you know, just, I don't know, like maybe I'm a bit nuts, I don't know, but I just feel like sometimes when I stare into Gabe's eyes and he's staring into mine, that we have this soul connection. And I had to be careful about being aware myself of what was going on, because part of me felt bad for him. I had empathy, I had compassion, but then they're not like great vibes to be giving to somebody that I love. And so I was sitting there and I was like so tired. It was about 4:30, and I thought, how can I raise my vibration, which isn't something you want to do at 4:30 in the morning when it's like 6 degrees and you're so tired you just want to sleep. I'm just looking at him and I'm stroking his little hair and I'm patting his little feet and just looking at him, and I thought, well, I can give him love. And so I just started like filling myself up with these feelings of love for him and tapping into that. And you know, it was so cute because he ended up going to sleep, which was wonderful because he'd been having trouble sleeping because he was so sick. But I was going somewhere with this story, but once again, I've gone off on a tangent. But I think when you can tune into the emotion and the feeling that's coming up for you, even if it's an unwanted situation like Gabe and I last night, maybe it's an unwanted situation in your practice, maybe a team member's just resigned, or, you know, now you're panicking about how you're going to get somebody new, maybe something like that, I don't know. But you want to have a think about, this is an opportunity for me to learn what's going on for me, where's my inner guidance at the moment, what do I need to know right now? And sometimes just putting a hand on your chest, breathing into your heart space and asking yourself the question, what do I need to know now? What do I need to know right now? And allow yourself quiet and just see what comes through. The first thing that comes into your mind is going to be what you need to know right now. And then the thing to do is follow through on that inner guidance, follow through on that inner direction, because that is how you're going to begin cultivating trust with yourself. And when you start to get better at cultivating trust with yourself through your emotions as your pathway, you're going to worry less about being judged, about what other people think. You're not going to be comparing yourself to other women in private practice as much anymore. You know what I mean? And can you hear what I'm saying? I'm sharing with you that this is how you heal that wounded feminine energy, right? Anyway, I love talking about this stuff. And so I want to say thank you so much. But I can absolutely understand why you might be thinking that you must focus on what needs to be done and not fluff around with contemplating your purpose. But here's the thing. Without purpose, you're not going to feel fulfilled in your work. Purpose is both masculine and feminine, right? Contemplating, dreaming about, imagining, anchoring into, accessing your purpose are all feminine things to do. The action that you take on that purpose, the mapping out, the steps you plan, the goals you set, and following through on all of those is the masculine element of purpose, okay? So if you're finding that in your work, you're where I was when I was working as a national manager for that big insurance company in Australia, if you're where I was and you're doing all of the things and you're doing, and you're making the money, but you're like on autopilot and it's just, you're like Groundhog Day, you just come home, have dinner, watch Netflix, get up early the next morning, do it all over again, you're not feeling fulfilled, right? You're busy. But busy isn't necessarily happiness, okay? Busy is what you mean busyness to mean, right? So if you say to yourself, well, if I'm busy, that means I'm a good person because good people are hard workers, fine, but it's not going to be fulfilling for you. So there is absolutely a role for purpose, and it's just going to require you to take a step back for a minute from the busyness and honor that it's safe and that it's okay. And I would argue required now for you to be able to give yourself an opportunity to sit down and really think about what your purpose is. And there are lots of different ways that you can do that. And that's something that we cover in the private practice method in my group and with my coaching clients. But really it's around identifying, the things that make you feel like you're having that contribution and that allow you to feel really lit up and really excited by what you're doing and who you're helping and who you're serving and what niche you want to be operating in. And then we anchor the business to that. And it's such a beautiful process because when you take somebody from the doing into the being, and you take them from that masculine space into that feminine space, oh my gosh, the transformations are amazing. I've worked with women who have gone from like government social worker positions over into running their own private practice based on their purpose and loving it. They're not working as long. They're not seeing as many clients. It's a different model of working. Instead of triaging and only getting to see people for short amounts of time, they get to see people for an hour or 50 minutes, and they get to see them throughout the journey, not just one snapshot in time. And do you know what I mean? All of that good stuff comes out. And I guess, that's where my heart lives, in helping people experience that for themselves and see that it's safe to do that. And just before I finish up for this podcast, I'm releasing a free 3-part video series that talks more about this sort of stuff. So if you would like to register to receive that, the videos are just going to be sent to your email. You can watch them whenever you like. You'll have them forever. But if you'd like to receive those, send me an email and I will pop the registration page in a reply back to you. I can also, just thinking about it out loud, might just be easier if I drop the link to the registration page in the show notes. So I will do that as well for you today. Let me know what you thought about this podcast, and I will look forward to hearing from you. Again, thank you so much for subscribing and listening. And again, welcome to our new subscribers. If you love it, please share it with your colleagues, because, I really want to create a big shift for women working in private practice and give them that safe space, that safety net to be able to explore some of this stuff that we haven't really had a chance to explore very much before. So thank you so much, guys. Have a beautiful Wednesday. Talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast today. If you're looking for clarity, if you need help with branding, your processes, and bringing everything into alignment with your soul's purpose for your private practice, head to the show notes and click the link for more information about the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group. You are going to love it. I can't wait to see you in there. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.